Hello and welcome to A Brief History. Today's subject, Europe. Ready, set, go. The year is 476 and the Roman Empire just collapsed and history is on pause until 1453. Why? Because of the Middle Ages where not much happened. Only a few crusades that lasted 200 years and a war that lasted for 100 years. The 300 Years' War started all because France was tired of England ruling the land and declared war in 1337 and not ending until 1453. Exactly 100 years. The Middle Ages is also defined by the Black Death, where a third of the population died in 1347 due to the rats being able to travel amongst the cities easily. So it's 1453, the war is over, along with the Middle Ages and feudalism. Let's rewind to 1375, where the Italian Renaissance started, but not really, because it was not a true historical event, because no one really knew they were living in history. Cue John Green Crash Course video here. Renaissance equals humanism. Petrarch, Dante, Boccaccio, all humanist. Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello, painters who use humanism to inspire their art. Leonardo with the Last Supper and Raphael with the statue of David. Humanism was the return of ancient Greek and Roman cultures. The Renaissance first started in Italy because it had the location where trade was the most active. It soon traveled to the rest of Europe in 1497. The Northern Renaissance can be defined by the Age of Exploration. You had Columbus sailing the ocean blue in 1492, Cortez conquering the Aztecs in 1519, and Pizarro conquering the Incas in 1532. This sparked the triangular trade between Europe, Africa, and the Americas, where raw materials would go to Europe, goods would go to Africa, and slaves would go to America. The Renaissance came to an end when this guy decided to sack Rome in 1527. Backing up to 1517, an angry monk decided to attack the church directly, due to the indulgences, where people can pay off their sins for a hefty price. This sparked the Protestant Reformation. This led to peasants revolting in 1524, but Luther called them out and settled with their princes. Then in 1541, John Calvin decided to start his own religion in Geneva, where a theocratic regime was put in place. England wanted in on all the Protestant reforms, so in 1534, Henry VIII declared the Anglican Church so that he can get a divorce. Mary I would soon go back on this and revert back to Catholicism. The first would soon go back on this in 1559 and would ease up on most religions. The Catholic Church did not like this, so then in 1555 they eventually declared the Diet of Augsburg, which allowed Lutheranism only in the Holy Roman Empire. Absolutism could be started. Alexis Louis declared himself the final authority in France, then decided to build a giant palace away from Paris. The English Civil War started in 1642 when the Parliament wanted a constitutional monarchy, while Charles I declared himself the absolute authority in England. John Locke and Thomas Hobbes were the two main philosophers during this event, with Locke deciding on constitutionalism and Hobbes arguing for absolutism. The Civil War ended with Parliament winning and Oliver Cromwell becoming a tyrant, what Parliament did not want. Eventually, England became a constitutional monarchy. In 1648, the Enlightenment and scientific revolution started, where everything was questioned. Copernicus first wrote about a heliocentric model, with Galileo trying to prove this. The thought during the Enlightenment was proving through experimentation. The Enlightenment also sparked enlightened absolutism, which rulers like Catherine the Great and Frederick the Great would try to follow to help prove their strength in the world. Another man that helped during the scientific revolution was Sir Isaac Newton, who proved the universe follows a mathematical equation, and everything was controlled by gravity. In 1789, the First French Revolution broke out due to poor living conditions of the lower class. France would try almost every political regime for 10 years until Napoleon rose to power, and during this event, they would cut off everyone's head. Napoleon became emperor in 1804 and caused many wars, the collapse of the Holy Roman Empire, and rise of nationalism in Europe. He would make one fatal mistake, invading Russia in the winter. This would ultimately lead to his downfall in 1814, and he would return in 1815 but lose in Waterloo later that year. 1815 and 1914, no less than 50 revolutions would start. First in 1830 with France, Belgium, Poland, and Switzerland, then in 1848 with France, Germany, Italy, and Austria, all because of nationalism. Germany would unify under Bismarck in 1871 after the Franco-Prussian War in the Hall of Mirrors. Italy were unified that same year. The Industrial Revolution would take place at the same time, with electricity, railroads, and new weapons. This would be a problem later. Imperialism happened at the same time, with every country scrambling for Africa. The scramble for Africa would soon be sparked by Otto von Bismarck, due to his Conference of Berlin, which evenly divided Africa between the countries and everyone trying to get the slice of the cake. This will be a problem later. Now it's 1914 and some guy decided to assassinate Franz Ferdinand, sparking a great war. Austria declared war on Serbia, causing Russia to declare war on Austria, causing Germany to declare war on Russia, causing France to declare war on Germany. Great Britain and the United States would join later. The war ended in 1918, and in 1919 the Treaty of Versailles was written, also known as the worst treaty in history. Germany was given a full blame for this war. Versailles would cause many countries to be created within the Balkans that were not wanted, like Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia, which created many ethnicities into one country and were practically ununified. In 1921, Russia became the Soviet Union with communism in place. In 1926, Stalin became the ruler of the Soviet Union after sticking an ice pick into Trotsky. In 1922, Mussolini marched with his boys on Rome and became leader of Italy. In 1933, Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, and in 1934, ultimately became the Führer. He used scare tactics and manipulated the German people in a time they didn't need it. Hitler wanted one thing for the German people: living space. The thing Hitler wanted for the German people was the ultimate genocide of the Jewish population, resulting in the horrible Holocaust that would occur. This all started with the stab in the back theory that thought that Germany only lost because of the Jewish population within it. The interior wars also oversaw the Spanish Civil War, where it showed the first proxy war of World War II, with the communists siding on the Republican side and Hitler and Mussolini siding on the fascist side. Eventually, after 3 years of fighting, the fascists will ultimately win, but Spain will never join World War II. So he started another great war in 1939 after invading Poland. He knocked out France in only a month. Hitler soon turned his eyes onto England. One thing stood in his way: water. He was unable to control the air, and soon the Battle of Britain came to an end, with Britain winning and Germany being unable to invade England. The United States would join World War II after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and Hitler declaring war on the United States, which was also one of his biggest mistakes. He made a fatal mistake though: invaded Russia after agreeing not to during the winter. The war ended in 1945 with the surrender of Germany and sparking the Cold War, the split of Germany between East Germany and West Germany. West Germany was influenced by the capitalists, and East Germany was influenced by the communists. Communists soon created the Berlin Wall to separate East Berlin from West Berlin to avoid any interaction between the two. It practically separated families from each other. The Cold War was one big staring contest between capitalism and communism, aka the United States versus the USSR. Big events to include in this was the Korean War, Vietnam War, Prague Spring, and the arms race for nuclear weapons. The only time they have been used was in World War II, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki against the Japanese. The Cold War ended in the 1990s after the collapse of the Soviet Union. History shapes us. Let us shape our future.